What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Talkin Sports with Jake. Hope we're all doing well. So today we're going to be talking about a lot of NBA offseason moves I think could happen. I mean, talking about a bunch of proposed trades that I put together. I'm not sure how many of them are going to happen. Probably close to none of them. But they're just random trades that I kind of like hypothetical trades that I put together. I'm going to talk about like hypothetically why they could happen. Probably won't happen, but this is a fun little exercise I thought I would do today. Not a lot going on. There was no NBA Finals or Stanley Cup Final games last night. Only things I already have, there was a couple of things going on with NHL. So a couple of awards came out. Lane Hudson, the defenseman for the Canadiens, wins the Rookie of the Year, the Calder Trophy. Beat out Macklin Celebrini. He had a great year. One of the best young defensemen in the game. Led all rookies in points. He had 6 points. Only had like 6 goals too, so yeah, he had like 60 assists from his defenseman spot as a rookie, which is very, very good. So he wins the Calder Trophy. One of the lone bright spots on a Canadiens team that they just snuck into the playoffs and then got closed on by Washington in the first round. They'll definitely a step in the right direction for a team that's been bad for a long time. Obviously, a historic franchise. Got close a couple of years with when they had Carey Price and all those guys. A bunch of years ago, we're in the East Conference Finals a couple of years. We're in the Cup Final in that slightly shortened year with the pandemic. But weren't able to quite get one, and they've gone to a giant rebuild for a long time. Obviously, Carey Price, that contract kind of killed him. He had some issues off the island with the ice. He had some mental health stuff and some injuries. Unfortunately, that cut his career a little bit short. But, they're starting to put together, have a lot of young pieces over there, and they still have a lot of picks, and I would think have a lot of cap space still as well. So, Montreal Canadiens, defenseman Lane Hudson, he's the Calder Trophy. And Cale Makar wins the Norris Trophy for the league's best defenseman. Beats out Quinn Hughes and Zach Werenski. It's the second time Makar has won the award. He's, to me, pretty clearly the best defenseman in the NHL. He's an absolute superstar. A big reason why Colorado's been a top team these last few years, and he, once again, is the Norris Trophy winner. And supposedly, nothing is done yet, but the Rangers and the Anaheim Ducks are talking a trade centering around Chris Kreider. There is no semantics right now. They have a framework. They are in pretty advanced talks. There's not much of a surprise as a Ranger fan. I love Chris Kreider, one of my favorite Rangers. Obviously when it comes to old-time Rangers, you're obviously going to think of Mark Messier, Mark Richter, and Roger Bear. But for I guess in the last 2.5 decades, he's certainly one of the best. He's up there in all-time goals in Rangers history. He's definitely top 5. He's one of the 4 Rangers to ever have 50 goals in the season. He's one of the best goal scorers in Rangers history. He's been with the team a very long time, his whole career, however. Took a step back last year. He's on the decline to $6.5 million next year. He's towards the end of his career. That contract hasn't really aged well, and I don't see him getting much better. So Rangers are a little strapped for cap space. They have a couple pieces that they're going to need to add. They're going to need probably 1 or 2 more pieces offensively. They're going to probably need 1 more defenseman. I know that they have a slew of guys over there that are going to be on the roster, but to me, still need a legit partner for Adam Fox. I think Keandre Miller should be on the second pair now, not the first pair. Assuming they re-sign him, I think they will. So I kind of saw the ring on the wall personally that Chris Kreider would probably get moved. Just $6.5 million for a guy who's only going to give you like 15 to 20 goals at this point in his career. He's not going to move the puck much. Isn't much of a factor on the back end. Kind of saw the ring on the wall there. But so Chris Kreider could be heading to the Anaheim Ducks. But keep your eyes peeled for that. But let's get into the NBA offseason moves. So the first one I have is a potential Simon trade between the Golden State Warriors and Portland Trail Blazers. The Warriors would send Jonathan Kuminga in a Simon trade to the Portland Trail Blazers. I'm thinking I could see him getting up to $30 million a season. NBA contracts are out of this world. I mean, you just got anybody making $200 million these days. Tyler Hero might get $150 million on a 3-year extension this offseason from the Heat. It's insane. He's a good player. Had a career was an all-star, but $50 million a year for Tyler Hero, just stop it. But Kuminga, I have him going to Portland, along with Guy Santos and Quentin Post. Those are guys just to make the money work. Along with a first-round pick in 2027. Warriors would get back Denny Avia, Scoop Henderson, a 27 first, as well as a 28 first that the Bucks have swap rights on. So Kuminga and then 2 throw-ins. Warriors and Portland would swap first in 2027. So that would mean Warriors would get most likely a better draft pick. if everything goes according to plan, Golden State will still be a contender, and Portland will kind of still be retooling. Hopefully, at that point, they're starting to kind of come out of this hole they've been in for a while, since they traded away Damian Lillard a couple of years ago. And then they get a 20th pick. Milwaukee has swap rights. If the Bucks trade away Giannis, they could be bad for a couple of years. So they may not. They may keep that pick. Keep their picks. They may not swap. So I think if you're Portland, you have a lot of young pieces over there. Guys you've gotten back in trades for guys like Drew Holiday and CJ McCollum over the last few years. You've drafted a lot of guys recently. You've taken small steps forward. You were competitive this year, but you haven't been able to really put it all together. You have not been able to even make the play-in since you traded away Damian Lillard. How when you had him, last couple of years he would get hurt. Him and Nurkic would always get hurt, so you would shut them down by March. So you miss the play even with him sometimes. And you have a bunch of young pieces, but to me, they have a couple of wings there, but none of them are all that much of a threat, and they just have a slew of guards and bigs, and they really don't all fit together. They got to move one or two guys, whether it's someone like Avia or maybe Jeremy Grant. I can see Jeremy Grant getting moved. To me, you have three young guards in Anthony Simons, Shadon Sharp, and Scoot Henderson. I think you have to move one of them. So you have to move someone. I think one of their bigs might have to go. I would think you're keeping Klingon because you just drafted him. He's got potential to be very good. You have DeAndre Ayton. If you can find a way to move him, that contract is vile. $35 million for DeAndre Ayton. Wow. And then they have somebody else there, too, who I can't remember off the top of my head. But in this move, they get a guy in Kuminga who I think has a chance to be a really good player in this league. Was a high draft pick a few years ago. First couple of years didn't really play much. A couple of years ago, finally, they were forced to kind of have to give him play time. They've lost pieces over the years. He traded away Jordan Poole to Washington a couple of years ago. Klay Thompson leaves in free agency last year. And then, last year, he wasn't getting much playing time. He expressed his frustration. Kerr finally put him into the rotation. He played really, really well. This year, battled a lot of injuries, but when he was healthy, played really well, I thought. However, got benched in the playoffs. Didn't really play at all in the playoffs much. It's clear that Steve Kerr and the Warriors don't really value him very high. Hearing rumors he could be a Simon trade candidate. He's a restricted free agent. I think that's going to happen. He's still 22 years old. I would keep him if I was the Golden State Warriors. I do think they need a third piece next to Steph Curry and Jimmy Butler. Keep in mind that windows are really tight for them. Steph Curry is still an amazing player, but he's old. Butler is 36, 37. He just signed a 2-year extension. Draymond Green is, 35, 36. He's got, I think, 2 years left on his deal. So that team is really old, and, we only have 2 or 3 years left before, this team is going to be basically a nursing home because of how old they are. So, you would want to keep a young piece like that, but if they don't value him, they might as well get something for him. If you're not willing to pay him I think someone may make him an offer sheet. If you're just not going to match, or you do it unwillingly, just to, and then you'll deal with those semantics later, maybe try and move him at the deadline or next year. Get something for him now. So you move him out, and then you get a better first-round pick, most likely in 2027. You get an extra first in 2028. You pick up Deni Avdija, who at their peaks, Kuminga, I think, has a higher ceiling. But Avdija is still young. He's a solid 3-and-D guy. And then you get Scoot Henderson, who has not been very good since being drafted 2 years ago. Was second overall pick. No, it's the third overall pick right after it was Wembanyama and then Brandon Miller a couple of years ago, 2 years ago. But he's still extremely young, had a lot of talent coming out. I was high on him coming out. I've soured pretty quickly like a lot of people have. Not sure how much is there. However, he goes to Golden State. You think Steph Curry's only going to play for so much longer. Maybe that could be his heir apparent. I don't know. Not saying he's going to be anything even remotely close to Steph Curry. That's absolutely redonkulous. Steph Curry is one of the greatest players in the history of the league. Scoot Henderson won't be an eighth of the player that Steph Curry is, but, maybe with the right coaching, maybe with a fresh start, could finally come out of his shell. In Golden State, you pick up another wing in Avdija, you pick up a young guard in Scoot, and then you probably are moving up in the first round in 27, and you get a pick and another pick in 2028. for Kuminga. If you're Portland, I think Kuminga has a higher ceiling now. You're giving up on Scoop, but remember, you have Anthony Simon, who's a very good player. You have Sharon Sharp, who had a career last year. You can afford to move off of him. And you bring in a Kuminga, who, of all the of many wings as they have over there, he, to me, has the highest ceiling of all of them. So that's a trade I have Kuminga going to Portland from Golden State. The next move I have involves Norman Powell and the Los Angeles Clippers. I have him going to the Memphis Grizzlies. I have Powell going to the Memphis Grizzlies. In return, the Clippers would get Brandon Clark, Jaden Wells, a first and 27. They get pick 57 this year in the second round. Not very sexy. I'm not sure if this is enough for Norman Powell. He had a really good season this past year. He's a guy who's a really good offensive player. Can really shoot the ball. He's a really good scorer of the basketball. However, he's also going to the last year of his contract. He is 31 years old. So I'm not sure how much they would get back from him if he truly is a rental. And if a team's going to have to give him, $30, $35 plus $1 million a year, is a team going to want to do that? They might rather just, have him for the year, see what happens, and then figure it out next summer. So, if you're the Clippers, I would blow up the whole team. This is not going to work. It's just, Harden's old. He's just a playoff choker. Kawhi is old. His body is shot. It's not the same. No, it's just simply not the same player. And Powell's a good player, but not a star. He's 31 years old. You have a couple of fine role players over there, like Ivica Zubac, Bogdanovich, but you missed your window. You lost Paul George for nothing. At this point, get what you can for some of these guys. Get what you can for Norman Powell. I will get you what you can for James Harden and Ivica Zubac and Bogdanovich. Get what you can for these guys, and try and see so that when you do eventually, you can go into this rebuilding phase. At least it's manageable. Maybe in a few years, you could build something else. So I get the return isn't great. You get back Clark, who I like. I think he's a solid big, solid power forward to have. He's still young. He's on a good contract. McWells is a young guy who I think is just a solid bench player, but you get back two younger pieces, at least two solid role players. You get back a first-round pick in a couple of years. You get back an extra late pick this year. I don't know how much more they're going to get for Norman Powell. And if you're the Grizzlies, I think this makes a lot of sense. They need, they're kind of in a tough spot. They were a 2 seed a couple of years ago. You go to the second round of the playoffs, lose to Golden State. You're all right, there's something here. And since then, they haven't really made any moves. They fired Taylor Jenkins for God knows why, 2 weeks before the playoffs this season. And so now, obviously, they got to find a coach. But when it comes to their roster, you have a great young point guard in John Morant, who I like a lot. He has trouble staying on the court, but when he's on the court, the guy is a freakish athlete. And then these some other pieces I like. I like Desmond Bane. He's a really good shooter. Jaren Jackson's a really good defensive anchor. And then Edey actually played pretty well for them. He did some good job rim protecting, though he's hurt now, but should be back at least in the first, after the, first, shouldn't miss more than the first 10 or 15 games next year. You lose Clark, but you bring in Norman Powell. I think, is Powell number 2? I don't know. I think he's number 3, but Ja with Bane, Powell offensively, and then on the defensive side, you have Jaren Jackson, you have Zach Edey. You still have some better pieces over there, G.G. Jackson's a guy who 2 years ago played really well as a rookie. If you can get him to bounce back, a guy like that, you still have some bench pieces. I think you still have Zaire Williams. So if you're Memphis, I think this is a good move. And the Clippers, this is about what you're going to get for Powell. And again, you might as well move him, because if not, you're going to have to move out the trade line for even less, or you're going to lose him next year. Because I don't know how you're going to put the money to re-sign him. I don't know if it even makes sense to re-sign him. His next move, so this one probably isn't going to happen, but it's a hypothetical trade. The Brooklyn Nets and Miami Heat. Either Heat sending Tyler Hero to the Brooklyn Nets. In return, the Heat would get Nick Claxton, Keon Johnson, and a top 10 protected first in 2026. If they don't get that, if that pick ends up, the protection comes to fruition, they would get an unprotected first in 27 from the Brooklyn Nets. My thought process here was, I think Hero's a very good player. He had a career year this year, wasn't also for the first time in his career. Good for him. He's still young. He's a good player. However, he is eligible for a 3-year, $150 million extension. He's a good player, but $50 million a year, good now. That's what you got guys like Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and Anthony Edwards making. Tyler Hero was very good. He is not in the same breath as those guys. So if you're Miami, obviously you've been stuck in the plane for a while. You're getting just annihilated in the first round every year. You got to retool somehow. And, this team clearly need one more legit scorer. They need a legit 5. Bam Adebayo means a 4. Plus, that guy's more of a defensive anchor than the guy who's not a guy game line. You need a 3. Oh, yeah, let's go to Bam Adebayo. So you send out Hero, get back Claxton, who's a really good rim runner, a very good center. He's still young. He's signed for 3 more years. That allows you to run double big with him and Bam Adebayo. Good luck scoring on those 2 guys. Allows you to move Bam Adebayo to the 4. You get another young piece back in Keon Johnson in a first-round pick. Again, you're like, all right, how the hell is this team going to score? Hero, Jimmy Butler obviously gone. There isn't much floor space in there. There isn't much scoring there, but at least now, I think the pieces fit together a little bit more. You can flip Andrew Wiggins for something. Maybe at this point, do you move off Bam Adebayo? Is that possibly an option? Jaime Jaquez is a player you have who I think can be really good. He honestly reminds me a lot of Jimmy Butler. They're similar players. Butler at his peak was a top 20, 25 player in the league. Obviously a dog in the playoff, what he did on the defensive end, very clutch. But I think Jaquez can be that kind of player. You drafted the kid this year in Khalil Ware, who I like, really skilled big man, at least offensively. So now that gives you 3, bigs, who I think are really good. Bam Adebayo is a proven old defense guy. Claxton is a really good player. I think will only get better. And I think Khalil Ware can be a really skilled big as well. He's on the offensive end. So, again, if you're in Miami, you might want to see if you can get a guy like Cam Thomas back in this trade. The Nets have his restricted rights, so I don't see them letting him go. This is a guy, when he's fully healthy, is average 24, 25 a game on 40 shots, but the guy's a bucket when he's on, at least for sure. So I think if you're Brooklyn, it doesn't get you the number 1 option, but you have a couple other bigs there. You have Noah Clowney, you have Davion Sharp, who I assume is coming back in restricted free agency. This gets you a legit scoring point guard in Tyler Hero, assuming D'Angelo Russell's not coming back, though I think he could. And you send out Claxton, you send out Keon Johnson, and the first. You have so many picks, giving up 1 first rounder next year or the year after. Not that big of a deal. So that's the thought process behind that trade. This next one, not sure how much I love it, but it's Trae Young. Well, it's Trae Young going to the Cleveland Cavaliers. So I do think Trae is a little bit overrated. Really good player. He's obviously an assassin from the 3-point line. Really good passer. But the guy plays 0 defense. He gets a little trigger happy sometimes. I mentioned he is a truly good passer. He averages 10 assists every single year, pretty much. He's good for 25 points and 10 assists pretty much every night. But just at times he has range, like Steph Curry does, where if he's shooting, he can make those crazy low shots and those 40 3-pointers. But just I don't think his style of play wins a championship. So if you're Cleveland, would you do that? However, if you're Cleveland, you've made a bunch of moves, you've drafted a bunch of guys. You've spent high picks on Darius Garland, on Evan Mobley. You've made a bunch of trades. You make the move. You're involved in the James Harden trade, which got you Karis LeVert, which hasn't worked out obviously, which got you Jarrett Allen. You made the big trade. You gave up a ton to get Donovan Mitchell. Paid a lot. Always gets a lot of money. You've added pieces in free agency. You haven't had a second round. You're clearly missing a second option next to Donovan Mitchell. You're over the apron. I don't really know what you're going to do. So, to me, you have to move at least one of Darius Garland or Jarrett Allen. Allen's a solid player. I like him as a second big behind Evan Mobley, but he's not really anything special. And I don't hate Darius Garland, but he has not risen to the occasion to playoffs. How much longer are we going to do this? He gets hurt sometimes, a little bit injury prone. I'll take him as my starting point guard, as a third option. He averaged 19 a game this year, but just doesn't do a whole lot on the defensive end. He's a fine player. good point guard, but like let's not pretend like he's not an all-star. Like we talk about like Jamal Murray, like a guy when he's on is a stud, but when he's off is really bad. I would take Jamal Murray over Darius Garland. So like Garland is at best a borderline all-star and a third option on a good team. So you get Trae Young, who is an upgrade over Darius Garland. You know, just obviously definitely a better scorer, definitely a better three-point shooter, better passer, worse defender, but this is already a good defensive team. You can probably afford to lose in defense. You give up Jared Allen, and you're giving up 3 first rounds. You give up pick in 26 that the Spurs have swap rights on. The Spurs have so much young talent that the Hawks are almost definitely going to be worse than them next year. So don't worry about that. Pick in 28, Utah has swap rights. I can imagine both teams are going to be pretty bad that year, so there probably won't be that much of a difference. And then unprotected first in 2030, that's from the Cavs. If you're Cleveland, you lose a little bit of depth, and you are giving up a lot of draft picks, and you don't have a ton of picks. You give up so many for Donovan Mitchell. But to me, you have to do something. You have to do something. So now that gives you Trae and Donovan Mitchell. You have a defensive anchor, Donovan Mobley, who can score a little bit. I'm not sure if Ty Jerome comes back or not as a role piece, but again, you're losing some depth, but you got to try something. If this doesn't work, which I'm not sure it is. Also, the East is wide open next year. The Knicks are, still, they got to get a coach. Probably you're still a piece or two away being a legit contender, like legit championship team. Boston is looking like their team's coming apart. Probably taking a step back next year. Milwaukee, they're trading Giannis. They're looking to be a lottery team. So outside of Indiana, assuming Indiana's team is the same next year, which I think it will be, I think Miles Turner comes back. Now, they're still a threat, obviously. Detroit has the opportunity to take a step forward, but they still have to make the right moves. Orlando's in the same boat. Other than that, I don't see Miami getting that much better. Toronto might be a little better, but they're not going to be a true threat. The Bulls obviously aren't a threat. And I don't see Brooklyn taking enough of a step forward for there be any sort of threat even in the playoffs. So if you're Cleveland, if you can find a way to get this to work, there's a chance you're at the very least in the Eastern Conference Finals. So that's why I have Trae Young to the Cavs for Darius Garland, Jared Allen, and 3 first-round picks. And again, this is a guy who's got multiple years left on his deal, is a great player, and he's still 26 years old. Next one I have Zion Williamson going to the Detroit Pistons. Okay, I cannot imagine this is going to happen. They just came out and said, we're not going to move him. That's what Pelicans just came out and said. But I have Zion going to the Detroit Pistons for Tobias Harris, Isaiah Stewart, and a first-round pick next year. I'm protected first in 26. Now, I don't see the Pelicans doing this. Zion, when he's on the court, is a great player, a freakish athlete. He is still real young. If he's been in the league a lot longer than he has, because we keep doing this every year. Is he going to get moved? Is he not? But he is still really young. Again, they said they're not going to move him. Even if they would, I think they'd want a lot more back. However, I don't see anybody giving up more than this. This is a guy who is always hurt. He's been appears to be a bit of a locker room problem. He's got some off-the-court issues now. Been being sued for some weird stuff. Tends to get out of shape very easily. Multiple times we've seen it, although he's finally back in good shape right now. We'll see if that lasts. My thought process was, if you're the Pistons, if you can find one to get Zion, I think that'd be great. First of all, their president of basketball operations, not Trae Langton. He used to be the GM of the Pelicans, so he knows Zion better than anybody. If he wants to make the move for Zion, he should probably be trusted. Then you think you need another piece next to Cade. If they can find a way to get this guy to stay in shape and keep this guy on the court, him next to Cade would do wonders. You give up Tobias Harris, his expiring deal. He's a good player, but obviously not Zion. You have a young big in Stewart. Because you have Durham, you can afford to lose, and then the first round pick. You have a bunch of picks. That's okay. If you're the Pelicans, you get a young big in Isaiah Stewart. You have two young bigs of him and Yves Missi. You get Tobias Harris, who you could hang on to for now. Maybe you flip him out of a deadline. You can flip him for some more picks. Maybe get a solid young player out of it. He did have a pretty good year last year. He's a little bit older, not the same player, but still a solid role player to have. And then you get a first round pick next year. So I don't know if you'll get much more than this. Probably doesn't happen. But this is about what I think a Zion trade would look like. If you're Detroit, now you have your lineup looks like this: Cade, Ivy, Alsar, Zion, and Jalen Durant. That's a really good starting lineup. And then if you can bring back at least one of Malik Beasley or Dennis Schroeder, and I mean you're still financially you still have a ton of cap space. So you can still probably bring back Beasley and Schroeder. You still have Simon Fontecchio and Marcus Sasser. You may need another big, but you would probably still have the cap space to possibly sign a Naz Reid or sign if you can find a way to get Miles Turner. And you could still make another move maybe for, I don't know what bigs are going to be available. The first thing that comes to mind is Kristaps Porzingis, but just, we're expiring $30 million, almost $31 million salary injuries. I don't know if that's attractive to the Pistons. Want another big on the bench, you could probably work out some sort of move. So, but that's a hypothetical trade I had. Here's one I have involved in my Knicks. I have one more of these as well on here. I'm going to save one for a little bit later, I believe. Golden State Warriors from the New York Knicks. I have the Knicks sending Mikal Bridges to the Golden State Warriors. In return, the Knicks get back Moses Moody, Buddy Hield, and the first round pick in 2026. So this is my thought process. You give up 5 first from Mikal Bridges. Is my reaction. Yikes. No bueno. I tried to defend the move at the time. I thought, all right, these picks aren't going to be very good for the most part. Mikal is, obviously a really good fit for the Knicks because of what he does on the wing defensively. His impact on both ends. Obviously, reunites with Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart from their college days. We thought also Donald DiVincenzo, but then he gets sent out for Karl Anthony Towns. He didn't have a great year. He's a good player. Also, if you're going up 5 first-round picks, you gotta be getting back a superstar. You gotta be getting back a Giannis Antetokounmpo or a Devin Booker or a player like that. You're not giving up 5 first from Mikal Bridges, who's can he be a third option on the team? He can, but they're giving up 5 first-round picks for him. Now, he's due almost $25 million next year, which is fair-ish. If he's also due for a 4-year extension worth almost $4 million a year, that's just not a good idea. If you're like, all right, we lost a trade. Let's try and salvage this. You need depth. You got a guy in Buddy who's one of the best 3-point specialists in the NBA. You get a guy in Moses Moody who's a solid bench piece. He's still young. He's on a team-friendly deal for multiple seasons. He's a good defender. And you get a first-round pick. You give up a lot of picks to get Mikal Bridges. But now you recoup one. You don't really have a lot of picks this year. However, now next year you have a bunch of picks. You have your pick. You have Golden State's pick. You have a potential pick from Washington. So you have you could have up to 3 first and 5 total picks in 2026. This move you add a little bit of depth. Now maybe next year if you come up short again next year you had the picks to possibly make a move. Maybe if Giannis is going to move, you go after him. I don't know who will be available. Whether it's I don't want to say Kevin Durant. He's getting moved in the next 3 weeks easily. But if it makes sense for you to go after him, I think I'm not sure what stars will be available next year. It's hard to predict. But if a guy like Devin Booker is available next year, you have the picks to go after him. I'm thinking right now you're looking at probably Brunson, Buddy Hield, Bridges, OG, and Towns, and then Deuce, Moody, and Mitchell Robinson on your bench. If you can find a way to add a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, all of a sudden, that short rotation that you had doesn't look so bad. So this is and also if you're the Warriors, you need a third option next to Steph and Butler. I think Bridges fits very nicely. You get a legit third option. You lose a little bit of depth, a little of 3-point shooting. By this point, you're not really worried about draft picks. Don't have a ton, but you're not really worried about draft picks. Again, your window is short. And if you're giving Bridges a 4-year extension, at least a good player you have that either in a couple of years is a guy that you could potentially, not completely build around, but a piece you can build around, or maybe in a couple of years you could trade him and get something nice back. When you look at forward when you start looking forward to the next era of Golden State Warriors basketball. So I think the movie just lose a little bit of that, but you got to go for it if you're the Warriors. That window is very, very, very tight. right now. I think fully healthy, I think that team with Mikal Bridges is probably the most conference finals, depending on what the Minnesota Timberwolves and some other teams do in the offseason. So that's another trade I had. Moving on, we got a bunch more here. Lauri Markkanen I have here. I have him going to Minnesota Timberwolves. So this is a very busy trade. Servers are going to look like a major overpay. I'm going to explain why maybe it's not. So I have Lauri Markkanen going to Minnesota Timberwolves. In return, I have Utah gets back Julius Randle. Either he opts into about $30.9 million player option, or they work out a Simon trade. Dante DiVincenzo, and then Luke Garza and Josh Minot are just throwing to make the money work. They get the 17th pick in this year's draft. They get a second rounder in 29, and a second rounder in 31 that Warriors have swap rights on. I think it makes sense for Minnesota. Not sure if Randall's coming back. Not sure if Naz Reid's coming back. Not sure if Alexander Walker's coming back. You need a piece next to Anthony Edwards. Markkanen didn't have a great year this past year. After a big year the year before, he averaged 25 a game. He did take a step back. I truly think Lauri Markkanen is a very good player. I think he's a legit number 2 option. In Utah, he is the one. And who's the second best player on that team? Is it Colin Sexton? Sexton's a fine player. Like he's a solid point guard, can shoot the ball. He's a good player, but like he's not a legit threat in this league. So I think this is a much better fit for Lauri Markkanen. They should have traded him last year. I'm surprised they didn't give him that ridiculous contract, opposed to getting a haul for him. But they got to take what they can get. They got a guy in Julius Randle who's a good player. He hasn't always shown up in the postseason, but is a good player. You know, we'll give you 25 and 10. Won't play a whole lot of defense, but we'll give you 25 and 10. One of the better starting power forwards in the league. You get a shooter at the bench in DiVincenzo. You get an extra first. You get an extra first this year, and then a couple of late rounders down the line. I think this is about what you're going to get for Lauri Markkanen, because teams are looking right. He's not a 1. He's on a huge deal. Not sure how much I'm going to give up for him. As for Minnesota, you lose a little bit of depth, but if you can bring back Naz Reid, I think this team looks really nice. I think this is definitely a better basketball team. And this is a team that they're in the Western Conference Finals. They got clotheslined, but they've been in the WCF 2 straight years. And I think this team is at least marginally better. Can this still beat the Thunder? Very doubtful about that. Assuming OKC's team is coming back, plus you get Nikola Topic back next year. They're probably going to be coming off a championship. But I think this is Minnesota's best shot to dethrone the Oklahoma City Thunder, if you ask me. Okay, next move was Michael Porter Jr. I have him going to the Indiana Pacers. Now, I think this is a little bit of a desperate move for Indiana that I don't think they would do. It's a really good front office. But my only thought process is maybe if they lose this finals, if Miles Turner were to leave, which I don't think is going to happen, and they kind of panic a little bit. Again, I don't think it's going to happen. I could see them making this move. Michael Porter and the first rounder in 2028 for Andrew Nembhard and Obi Toppin. So I originally was thinking maybe no pick along with Porter, and maybe the Pacers' first rounder this year goes to Denver. I don't think Porter's going to have much of a market. At his best, this is a guy who can be a very good player. Good shooter, can score, good wing defender, really good wing to have, but not the guy that they thought that when they drafted him. Really solid third option, glue guy, but not a star. He's also very injury prone. He's clean with injuries for the most part. I think they have affected him a little bit, but he had a really bad year this year. He's doing $38 million a pop AAV for the next 2 years. That's a rough contract. But if you're Indiana, I think if a change of scenery, this guy could revert back to what he was a couple of years ago. That is a really good player. Now with Halliburton, Siakam, and Porter, even if Turner leaves, not sure what you're doing for big men, but maybe Isaiah Jackson steps up next year. You still have Aaron Nesmith. You still have, TJ McConnell. It's still a really good team. And if Porter can be what he was a couple of years ago when Denver won the championship, I still think his team can get back to the finals. Remember, a wide open East. Now, depending on what the New York Knicks do and what maybe the Detroit Pistons do, the chance Pacers are they're probably back in the ECF at least, and they could be back in the finals again next year. Then you also get a first round pick. And if you're Denver, it's about what you're going to get from. You get a good young player, and Nemhard Woodman can be very good. Very skilled player. You get Obi Toppin, who's a solid role player. And I think you get Porter with the Bucks, which I think does need to happen. You get back two solid young players, and I think this is how because I think they need to retool a bit, but I think there's a scenario where they can still be a good team next year and in the future. You have one of the best players in the sport, maybe best player in the sport, in Nikola Jokic. Once they're completely tearing it down and moving him, which I don't think they are, I think that'll be obvious. We haven't heard anything about that. I think you do this deal. Porter in the first and 28. I get you don't really have any picks, but I think this is your best shot. It's still extending that window for the next few years, and maybe you can grab one more before. Like, all right, now you have to completely just tear this thing down and trade away Nikola Jokic. So that's a move I had. It's a smaller one. I have Jonas Valanciunas going to the Lakers. The Kings get back Jared Vanderbilt in the second round, pick 55 in this year's draft. Pretty simple. The Lakers need a big, desperately. Valanciunas is at the end of his career, but still a solid player. He's a solid post scorer, can still protect the rim a bit. He's on a good contract. You give up Vanderbilt, who's a solid big to have on the bench. Very good defender. One of the better bench rim protectors. For the Kings, it gets you a young role player. You need your young pieces. You get a late round pick out of it. This is a team I think needs to go into a bit of a retool and a rebuild. Valanciunas, there's no point in keeping him on the roster. That's about what you'll get for him. If you're the Lakers, giving up Vanderbilt in second, I think it's worth it for Valanciunas. Could you get a better big? Yeah, I think there's better bigs out there. Currently, Towns might be available with the Knicks. Kristaps Porzingis in Boston, but I don't know what you're going to have to give up for those guys. Much have to be worth it. You won't have to give up a lot for Valanciunas. That might be your best option. And just see if it works. I'm assuming LeBron's coming back. And if this doesn't work, then at that point, I'm guessing LeBron is going to retire after next year. And then at that point, you're going to have to do something pretty drastic anyway, regardless, because that obviously changes a whole lot of things. We got a couple more here. This one is I move ahead. I have Kevin Durant going to the Phoenix Suns. Not to the Phoenix Suns. From the Phoenix Suns to the Houston Rockets. I have the Rockets getting Kevin Durant. I have the Suns getting Fred VanVleet. He has a team option worth $44 million. I'll say he opts into that to make the trade work, and then if the Suns want to flip him, they can also do that if they want to. Jock Landale, the 10th pick in this year's draft. They get back their pick in 27 and another pick in 27 that Brooklyn has swap rights on. If all goes well for Brooklyn, they could actually be a pretty good team in 2027. Phoenix is probably going to suck at that point, so Brooklyn may not even swap. If you're the Rockets, this would be great. They need a number one scoring option. They don't have it right now. You put Kevin Durant with Amen Thompson, with Alfred Şengün, always a young piece you have. You still have Jabari Smith and all those guys. I get with Jalen Green there, is that fit great? No. But I think you could still move Jalen Green for something. I don't think it would work in this trade. I don't think the salaries would quite line up. But but I have, this is the move. And if you're the Suns, I don't think they're going to get as much for Durant as people as they think. He's on a huge deal. He's only going to be there for a year or two. He's old. He's injury prone. He hasn't really accomplished anything since he left Golden State. This is his best chance to get one more championship and get his third championship before he retires. You think you get a guy in VanVleet who's a good point guard. $44 million is a little bit steep, but you could flip and get back a good player and the first round pick possibly. A guy in Landale who's a solid backup big. The contract he's on isn't bad, and you get back the the 10th pick was actually your pick. So you get back 2 of your picks, and then an extra pick. So basically, you get back 3 first-round picks. This is about the best I think you're going to do. And obviously for the Rockets, I think it makes you an instant title contender for the next year or 2, at least. And this one, this is another one along with like the Zion trade. I don't see it happening, but this is a truly strictly hypothetical. I have LaMelo Ball going to the Wizards. Yes, the Hornets and the Wizards, the 2 just franchises you look at and just go, what are you doing? Your rosters have literally nothing on them. Making a trade. I have the Hornets saying LaMelo Ball to the Wizards. In return, they get Jordan Poole, Bilal Coulibaly, and a first rounder next year. It's going to be either the most favorable of the Thunder, Rockets, or Clippers. So either way, it's not going to be a great pick. The Thunder will be, I think, at least in the Western Conference Finals again next year. The Rockets will easily be a playoff team if they get Kevin Durant. I think they will. They could be in the WCF. And the Clippers, now that team is all on what the hell they're doing, but they'll be, I would think, at least be a playoff team. LaMelo, I think LaMelo's a very good player. Very good scorer. He's a decent shooter. 3-point shots come along. Great passer. Very good player. The guy is just never healthy. I don't think you're going to get much more for him than this. He's also on a huge contract. So I don't know how much more you're going to get for him. You have to trade him now because I get the conversation of all right, it's either he's going to find a way to stay healthy and he's going to be the only piece you really have. You got to build around him. Or he's always going to be hurt. You won't be able to really move him. But to me, you have to move him now. I don't see this guy. I guess he's still going to be young, but the guy, he's never played a full season. He's only played more than 70 games once. I think outside when he played 75 games a couple of years ago, he's never played more than 51 games in the season. The guy is simply never on the court. Now, you get back Jordan Poole, who had a better year this year. I think he's a good player. Maybe not a star, but I'm not sure if he's ever even an all-star, but he's a good player, a very good scorer. He can shoot the 3. He's a good role player to have. Coulibaly is the young guy you took high 2 years ago. Haven't seen a whole lot from him. He's a young piece for the Hornets to evaluate, and you get a first-round pick. If you're short about what you're going to get for him from Washington, I mean, you got to try something. Your best player is Jordan Poole, who is maybe I talked about Darius Garland. Darius Garland. He's even worse than Darius Garland. So it's something. I think you have to move LaMelo to me. You got to move him. I would build around Brandon Miller. You got him. Now you get Jordan Poole. You can evaluate Coulibaly. And you have Mark Williams for now, though I can see him getting dealt. And you get an extra pick next year. You have a high pick this year, and just keep trying, I guess. That's the best I can do. Just 2 poverty franchises just figuring, let's just do something to try and convince our fans that we're doing something. Okay, you got 3 more moves to get through. Franz Wagner. This is what I have for Franz Wagner. I have him going to the Chicago Bulls. Okay, I'm assuming this is going to seem really stupid, but I'm going to try and explain. Franz Wagner to the Bulls. In return, Orlando gets Patrick Williams, Kevin Huerter, and the top protected first in 2027. So this seems like a really weak return for Franz Wagner. A guy who just had a career year, averaged 24 points a game, is still, 23, and is on a big contract. And his 5-year extension is just kicking in this upcoming season. However, I think Franz is a really poor fit next to Banchero. I think Paolo was really underrated, a great player. A guy I think we should build around, but he's not a great 3-point shooter. What do you have to do? Surround him with 3-point shooters. And his co-star, if you want to call it that, in Franz Wagner, is not a great 3-point shooter. So, I think if you get back a guy in Williams who was a former top 5 pick, who hasn't quite been the guy that we thought, but is still a good player, is still young, can shoot the ball. I think is a better fit, although Franz is a better player. Next to Paolo, you get Huerter, who's a good role player, a really good shooter at the bench, and you get a first-round pick in a couple of years. So I think this makes you a better basketball team. You still have a bunch of picks and a bunch of cap space to go out and make moves in free agency. Could you see if you can maybe get a Cam Johnson from the Nets and go out and make some more moves? I still think you can go out and do that. And if you're the Bulls, you get to a really good young player in Franz. He's a better player than Williams. Herter's a guy you should be flipping anyway, and just the one first round pick for Frondit is worth it. Obviously makes a lot more sense for the Bulls. For Orlando, I get why this seems like a weak return, but I just think he's such a bad fit. I really think you should move him. He's just such a bad fit. And then next to Paolo Banchero, I think those two individuals are both great players. I think Paolo's a guy you definitely are building around. I think Franz could at least be a really good number 2 on a good team. But just those two together, I don't think it makes a lot of sense. Okay, second to last move. Also involves my Knicks. Involves Karl-Anthony Towns. I have him going to the Toronto Raptors. Probably didn't expect that. In return, they get back R.J. Barrett. You see a little reunion there. Jakob Poeltl and a 2026 first-round pick. If you're Knicks, I think you do this in a heartbeat. Poeltl is a solid big to have. He's on a pretty good deal. He's a solid bid. He's obviously not. You also lose the floor space that you have with Karl-Anthony Towns. However, you would save some money, and he's a much better rim protector, much better defender. He can score a little bit in the paint. I think it makes a little more sense as a big, especially when you're loved by Jalen Brunson. Barrett's a guy who obviously you drafted. He came up with you. He was with you for a few years. Had a career last year in Toronto. I think upon his return to the Knicks, whether you're starting with the 2 to 3, having him at the bench, I think RJ don't love the deal. I don't think he's what he did last year. I don't see him ever doing better than that. I think at best he's a average third option on a good team. I don't think he's really he's maybe I would say slightly better than Austin Reeves, I guess. I think his ceiling is a little bit limited, but he's a good player. Still young. He's not a great three-point shooter, though. He got better this past year. He's a good scorer. He's a passable defender. He's a solid role player to have. And then, you're picking up in the first-round pick of 26. If things don't go south this year, it gives you do have they're really the only picks you already have. You have Brooklyn has swap rights on a lot of them, and then you don't have many other draft picks there. You have so many from McHale. You've given up so many over the years. But again, if you're all right, we need to just do something to try and get a championship before we have to blow this thing completely out of the water. It gives you the picks. Next year go and get a Devin Booker or a player like that. And just try one last thing to try and get a championship. So I don't know if Toronto would do it. If you're going to trade away, a couple, multiple young pieces and picks, I think they would try and go and get Giannis. But you get a floor spacing big. He's an upgrade over Poeltl in that area. Barrett, you have a lot of young pieces there. I think you can afford to give up Barrett. You still have a bunch of picks. You got 3 first rounders back for Siakam. You've gotten back a bunch of picks recently. So, not sure if Toronto would do it, although Towns is a better player than Barrett and Poeltl. I'm not sure if it would make a whole lot of sense because they're not very close to a championship. However, I think it makes a lot of sense for the Knicks. And for Toronto, I think if they think that Scotty Barnes can take that step forward and be a star, I think you do it. I don't see that happening. They get back. He's a solid number 2. My confidence is kind of starting to waver, like a lot of Raptors fans, when I've heard, their confidence is kind of starting to waver over Scotty Barnes. But if they really think, maybe they want to see this young core out with Emmanuel quickly and Scotty Barnes, but they want to try and make a push. I think right in a wide open East, maybe this gets us to the playoffs. And once you saw maybe something that happens will happen with Indiana next year. That's the only chance that they would do it, but I think it's a chance, but probably not a good one. And the last one is really busy. Can't imagine it happens, but I don't think it's that unsensible. I have the Boston Celtics trading for Giannis Antetokounmpo. I hope this doesn't happen as a Knicks fan. I don't think it's gonna happen, but it's when I put this together, it was so intriguing. I was like, let's just talk about this on the show and see where it goes. I have a Celtics trading for Giannis Antetokounmpo as well as Bobby Portis. They send to the Bucks Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Peyton Pritchard, and 3 first-round picks. 28th pick in this year's draft. I'll be taking first in 26 and 2030. So if you're Boston, you either have to break up this team completely, and then probably hope that Jason Tatum is mostly the same player when he comes back in 2 years, and then probably eventually trade him in like 3 years from now, and you have to just start all over, or try to extend your window, as much as you can. You're giving up a lot. I know it seems like just a king's ransom to give up, but think about it. Now you're able to keep Drew Holiday. You're able to keep Porzingis. You're able to keep Sam Hauser. Brandon makes sense to give up by giving up Derek White and Peyton, which seems a little ridiculous, but think about it. Now you have Drew Holiday. Like next year, your bench is going to be really thin. You're probably not going to have a second round, but you can still be a good team next year. But the following year, when Tatum is back, you have Drew Holiday. You're probably banking on maybe Abel Schreiber taking a step forward, but still you have Sam Hauser as your starting 2 guard, and then with Tatum, Giannis, and if you bring back Porzingis, if Abel Schreiber can be a legit, I think he's basically the same player as Sam Hauser. I've said that before on this show. I think he's the same player as Sam Hauser. You have him on your bench. You have a solid backup big in Horford. You also bring in Bobby Portis, who's a solid backup big to have. He's a good 2-way player on the bench. Just the duo of Giannis and Tatum alone. If you're able to keep Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, this team is a title contender. I don't know for how long, but in 2027 and probably in 2028 as a title contender, they could grab one more championship out of this, which is I think is the best case scenario. Because right now, if you're just dumping off Drew Holiday, you're dumping off his name, Kristaps Porzingis. Maybe you're moving Sam Hauser as well, and then to the point where you might be moving off Jaylen Brown, Derek White in a year or two, and then before you know, Jason Tatum's going to be alone. You can at least get one more championship out of this, at Jason Tatum's prime, assuming he's the same player when he comes back. So those are my hypothetical possible NBA trades. That's all I got for you guys today. Until next time, so long, and have a great day.